It's a privilege to be here with Jean-Michel Jarre backstage at NAMM 2017 at the Roland press conference. So you've just been given yet another award, the Roland Lifetime Achievement Award, back there, out
Absolutely.
there. Thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us, Jean-Michel. You're probably the first person I've ever interviewed who my father would know the name of. So actually, Dad, I've done it. 80 million albums sold, first man to play in China, 3.5 million people in one audience. This is kind of, it's beyond comprehension for most people. And you started off what a lot of my friends and I, as we were growing up, call electronic music. You started it off for us, you were talking out there about the fact that it's happened for 10 years before then, but to us, as 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, your music was it. And it was coming out of Europe where we were from. So the first question I want to ask you is, how do you manage to have such a long career and a prolific career?
I don't know. I think for me, music is a kind of addiction, and I think artists are not doing, musicians are not doing music for most of them for fame or for recognition or for money. It's just because you can't do anything else. And electronic music is something which I think allow you, but also you have to be aware of the innovation and of new technology, and that keeps you, I think, quite fresh, like constantly exploring new territories, which is not maybe the case for other kind of art form, probably, I don't know, but electronic music has that kind of specific situation of actually continuously demanding yourself to go to explore more, to explore not only technology but new concepts regarding technology also.
And do you think it keeps you fresh, it keeps you young, and keeps you
I think so.
hungry?
Yes, I think electronic music is a very good way to keep you fresh, I think.
So you had a musical family. I know your grandfather gave you your first record deck and your first mixer, I believe. So
Absolutely.
He's the one the DJs are looking up to and saying, well
Absolutely,
done.
yeah. He could be like a kind of first DJ. He even invented one of the first turntables. So he's a kind of also pioneering indirectly in the world of DJs.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. My question was, how does having a musical family, how did it influence you in your early days? Was it important, or do you think you'd have been on a similar path without them?
I don't know. I think it probably has an importance on the level of chromosomes, maybe, but not necessarily directly, because I was hesitating between paintings and visuals and music, but probably, my grandfather had a major influence on me, and also my father being a great soundtrack composer. And all this obviously certainly played a role somehow.
So in our audience we have people who are DJs, they've got a propensity for music, they want to learn to produce, and one of the questions that people ask a lot is it important to have music theory, to have understanding music theory, and then by extension to go to music school. Now I know you went to music school, you had some ups and downs, finding your place in that kind of world. How important is music theory for someone who wants to be a musician and wants to be a producer?
It depends on what we are calling music theory, because if we are talking about only the music theory in the Western way, with solfeggio and harmony, and obviously it's important. But if we take a distance, and if we see, for instance, African music, Chinese music, African music, they are not based on the same systems, and they're still very sophisticated. I mean by this that electronic music since the half of the 20th century, we went with new concepts, not doing music only with notes based on solfeggio, but doing music with sounds. And actually, if we're talking about music theory, I would say that it's very important to, these days, as important as having some basis on solfeggio, to know how to record a sound, to know how to mix, to know how to create layers, perspectives, architecture of sounds, how to build a track. It's a music theory in itself.
It's production alongside being a musician.
Exactly,
really.
and this is part of the same concept. So I would say yes, we need music theory, but I think music theory today is fairly different from what our grandparents were thinking about when they are talking about music theories.
But your music is, to me, your music is melody. And this is another interesting fact for me as a DJ, that I believe that you influenced a whole generation of DJs, and I'm talking about the kind of the first wave of European DJs at the end of the 80s and the early 90s, when house music became a melodic thing, and it kind of became very inclusive to a whole generation, my generation at that point. And I believe you influenced them with your love of melody. Melody seems to be the thing that's always shone through with your music, kind of over and above rhythm and over and above everything else. Would you say that, do you see that influence? Do you see the way that your music influenced that whole generation of DJs?
I know, because I have lots of friends in the DJ community, and they're constantly saying me this, and it's obviously something which is very pleasant. But beyond this, I think I would say that I'm also influenced by lots of DJs myself. And I would say that going back to your first comment about melodies, I always consider that the melody is the most important thing in music. And actually, good DJs and good DJ music is always made of melodies and not only beats. Because if you just have the beats, it's okay for dance floor. But when you go out from the dance floor, and electronic music is not just done for dance floor. I mean, there is obviously a big life of music beyond dance floor. I mean, music is everywhere today. Electronic music has no boundaries, and the melodies will always be the heart of music composition. And actually, good DJ set, good DJ composition are obviously making a very important role to melody. This is very important, and the beat is also another thing. But you cannot only make music you can listen to only with beats. You can do music with melodies without beats. It can exist.
Yes, maybe only for the dance floor.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So let's move on to kind of becoming successful. I'm asking you to think back to when you first realised that this was going to work. I mean, as a DJ in the late 80s, early 90s, we thought it wasn't going to last 6 weeks. We thought this whole scene was going to last 6 weeks. It didn't make sense to us. It was new, and it's lasted till this present day. As an electronic musician, you must have felt that times 1,000, thinking, where's this going? Is it going anywhere? And then all of a sudden, success kind of came. Do you remember the time when you suddenly thought, this is going to work? And if so, when was it? And how did it feel?
Actually, apart from my own career, my own successes, I always been convinced that electronic music one day for the 21st century will be the major genre. For one very simple reason, is because suddenly you were starting to think about music again, not only in terms of notes based on solfeggio, but actually being able to structure your own soundscapes, your own range of sounds. I always consider that electronic music composition, like DJing, is like cooking beats, cooking frequencies, cooking waveforms in a very organic way. It's a contradiction, because lots of people outside our world may think that electronic music is cold and robotic and lacking of emotions. It's exactly the reverse. I mean, doing electronic music is the most organic, sensual, almost sexual activity. I mean, in terms of building sounds, building a momentum, building an orgasm.
Well, you've got, as you say, you've got a lot of ingredients that you can.
Exactly. Absolutely right.
It's unfair to say a 4-piece rock band has only got 4 instruments, because, of course, there's a lot more to it than that. But I guess what you're saying is there's something infinite about electronic music that.
I mean, your own. Suddenly, you can be yourself a rock band, a symphony orchestra at the same time. You can do everything. The trap is to because you have to define your limitations. I mean, any art form is about limits and limitations, and we know that less is more. It's true for everything. It's true in literature, in movies, and in music, and in DJing. It's a very important concept to try to be not minimalist, but to try to define your own limits. And the trap with technology these days is technology will make you think that technology has all the answers, and that you can, and they could solve all your problems. I mean, as we know, the difference between us when we are doing music is who you are, who I am as a human being. We can use the same instrument, but the result will be different. And what makes music so exciting, because it's a timeless question. By every day today we say yes, technology is all around the planet, and everybody can DJ, can become a DJ or can make new music, and there is nothing new anymore. I don't agree at all. I mean, when I worked recently with a band such as Fuck Buttons, for instance, I mean, very young new band, I heard the music and I said, my God, I never heard that before. And they're using the same instruments as you or as me, but with a different angle, with their own style.
I just want to go back to that point about when you first knew it was going to work for you, and the excitement. I'm just interested to know when that was. Was it when the record sales started to go up, or was it before that? When was it that happened in your career?
Actually, when I did Oxygen, my first album, who became a big success, this album has been rejected by all record companies. They were saying, "What's that? There is no drummer, no singer. Tracks are 10 or 12 minutes long, and on top of it is French." So I mean, it has been. And then suddenly, I remember that Radio 1 played the entire album. I think it's the only time they played the entire album.
Do you remember who played it?
I should, because this guy was very important to me, but I just forgot the name.
Okay.
It will come back. And I think they did it just twice. One with Oxygen, one time with Dark Side of the Moon from Pink Floyd, and that became an instant hit in the following hours. And this is the first time I realized that electronic music has had such a potential towards a very wide audience.
So back to what you were saying about setting limits, and about how less is more, and about how barriers help you make better art. I guess that's where you were going with that. You said that the Moog was like the Stradivarius, I'm sure I pronounced that correctly, it was like, of electronic music. That's a limiting thing. It's one instrument. It's a Moog. It's a very complex instrument, but it's one instrument. But my question is, has the digital audio workstation, and has the digitalization of electronic music, if you like, helped or hindered? Do you think it's given more possibilities or introduced more complications, or both? What's your view on it?
Absolutely both, because the great thing with digital and virtual instrument these days is actually suddenly it's democratizing music. Everybody can do some music in a rather decent technical way on the planet for a limited budget. It's a revolution. And it's very, very positive. Now the technology and the people developing softwares, they have the tendency to say, okay, what we're going to give you is going to solve, as I said, just all your problems, and it's not true. You have to be very choosy. And before, when I started, I had limitations because not a lot of synthesizers were around, and also have financial limitations because those instruments were quite expensive. Now we have no limits. You since the beginning of our conversation, probably here a few hundred plugins are on the market, and they probably most of them will be obsolete by the end of the week. So we are in this kind of crazy maelstrom of constant things, and constant evolution of new toys, and we love toys, But my advice for a young DJ, a young beginner, would be, okay, choose carefully one or two plugins or one piece of hardware. Take your time, and then get stuck to it for 6 months at least, or 1 year, because then you will realize that what you're expecting to be different, to be original, has to come from yourself. Don't wait anything, don't expect anything from technology, because by the end of the day, what will make your music specific is yourself.
That's great advice. I'm going to move on to advice for beginners. But one question I'd like to ask you about your own career is, what would you tell yourself now if you could go back to when you were 20 and have a conversation with yourself? What advice would you give yourself as a young Jean-Michel Jarre?
I would say don't change anything, probably, because I remember that I was full of doubts, and doubts are great. I was also full of hope and expectations, and I would say that I've been really privileged to be at the beginning of electronic music movement. Like when you are at the beginning of a movement and you are in nothing, it's just because you're there at that time. I mean, the fun and the privilege to open doors on virgin territories. When I started, you had nothing before me, so I could be in a total innocence and consciousness, exploring things. Now a beginner is starting electronic music rather old, because he has 40 or 50 years of pretty heavy stuff behind him.
I suppose one of the good points there is that your average talented 15-year-old probably doesn't even realise that, so they're kind of at least starting with a blank slate.
Absolutely.
You know, on your electronica album, which won a Grammy, I believe. Did it won?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
nominated. You work with so many of the current crop of, and some older people like Pete Townsend and people like that. But you work with Air, Moby, who's one of my favourites, M83. A lot of these people who you influenced right from the beginning of their careers, I'm sure. I'm going to ask you a difficult question now. Who's your favourite current electronic artist? Who came into your head when I said that?
It's very difficult to answer to this. Like I couldn't answer, because I spent 5 years to work with my favorite artists, because when I did electronica, the idea was to gather around me some artists from the electronic scene who have been and are a source of inspiration to me. So it goes from Massive Attack to Fog Buttons to Air to Moby to M83 to Laurie Anderson to Tangerine Dream to Boys Noise to Armin van Buuren. I mean, for different reasons, the Pet Shop Boys, Gary Newman. I mean, for all different reasons, these artists are amongst my favorite artists. And but actually, obviously, I had to stop after 30 artists. I would have liked to work with Chemical Brothers, with Deadmau5, with people like this. I mean, these are also amongst my favorite artists. So
you're on tour in the US for the first time. It's the first actual US tour, which is crazy, really, if you think about it. Talk to me a second about your love of visuals, your love of being outdoors and spectacle. Of course, that predated the whole festival EDM US thing by 30 years. Talk to me a little bit about the performance side of that, because he's one man on a stage. And I know, because I've done a little bit of research, I know that in China, when you did your first dates there, they didn't really know what to make of you, and you took it upon yourself to kind of get in the crowd and get it going. How important is it for electronic musicians to be performers as well, to have that performance side of what they do?
Actually, you know, I think that performance is part of the life of any musician. When I'm in studio, after a while I'm fed up and I want to be on stage. When I'm on stage, after a while I'm fed up, I will go back to the studio, as you know probably. And I've always, at very early stage in my career, I got the idea and the need to involve and integrate visual in my performances. I've been probably one of the first artists to involve and integrate visuals at that stage, because I thought that in days, even at that time, where you could listen to music everywhere, your headphones, at home, in your car, wherever. I mean, if you buy a ticket to go to a concert, it's because you have a visual expectation of the artist. And in electronic music, we know that, I mean, standing 2 hours behind your turntables or behind your synth or behind your laptop is not the most sexy thing in the world. So, I mean, naturally, because also the nature of electronic music, the nature of the technology of electronic music fits very well with the technology and the techniques of the visuals. And for my current tour, I really designed and devised a very special scenography and stage design fitting really the music, not in terms only in sync, but in terms of what I'm obsessed when I'm doing music by trying to create some perspectives, architecture of sounds, soundscapes, and I wanted to express this visually. So I really created a kind of 3D type of scenography, but 3D without glasses. It's not. I hate glasses in 3D. I think it's the dark age of 3D, and I was not sure if it would work. These layers of LED screens with transparencies, and I was blown away. We are all blown away during the rehearsals. We had a very successful tour in Europe, and I'm dying to share this new experience with the US audience.
May in LA, and then where else are you playing? What other cities are you going to be playing?
I'm around 10 cities during May, starting in Toronto and then New York, Philadelphia, Denver, Chicago, San Francisco, and some other cities.
If you're watching this in the US, this is your chance. It's, we can't say if or when it will happen again, so don't miss it. Thank you very much, Jean-Michel Jarre, for your time today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And this is Phil at NAMM for Digital DJ Tips.